Right guys, the other day I did basically the oldest Japanese swordsmanship part 1. Now it was just one-off video, but people started questioning and there were some mistakes made. So what I'm going to do for today is explain those mistakes. So I said the oldest Japanese swordsmanship that I have found to date so far is 1612, 1614, around there. And people have said, hold on, what about the schools that go way back? Now, I did qualify in this video, but there was quite a lot of misunderstanding. So the question is, what is the oldest type of Japanese swordsmanship we can identify that has not gone through any change? It's very difficult to work out how much change has happened over 400 years. So what we're trying to do is find the oldest swordsmanship, which we know has not been changed because it says so at that date. This is what we do. And the earliest one is the early 1600s. Now I'm going to read you something now from the Bubishi. Now the Bubishi, or Wubeisi, in Chinese, I think it's Wubeisi, and the Bubishi in Japanese is a book that was written in 1621. So 1621 is a very early date for Japanese stuff. It's not perfect. It would be better if it was in the 1500s, but 1621 is superb, and it talks about the Japanese sword. And here's the long sword, which is tachi basically. In Japanese this would be tachi, but it would be a different kanji. And this one is the waist katana, basically a normal katana really, or you know, wakizashi, uchi katana, all that type of stuff. And this would be a tachi, and it says it is, the katana should be 5 feet long. Okay, or it says katana, it actually says sword. The kanji is sword and bladed weapon basically. And the Chinese don't say it's katana, obviously they say it as whatever the Chinese say it as. So you don't get mixed up with your terms here. It's hip sword and long sword. And long sword tools would be tachi, hip sword would be uchi katana, something like that, striking katana. So it says because hold on, the katana should be 5 feet long. Okay, so tachi should be 5 feet long, and the smaller sword is 3 foot 2 sun. So 3 shaku ni sun. So that means 3 shaku for the shorter sword is literally what everybody has a katana today. So a katana today is the same size as the shorter blade. Now Miyamoto Musashi says this. He says daisho, big, large. He says today is katana and wakizashi. However, he says in the past it was tachi and katana, meaning that it was a big battle sword and a shorter, quick thingy sword. But because of times of peace, it's gone to the shorter sword has become the long sword, and now they carry a dagger instead. So the size of differences there is massive. But what we know is in this Chinese manual, which is just at the end of the Sengoku period, it says 5 feet for a bloody katana. Now I want you to listen to this, so please follow me. I'm going through Eric's book, the Shadow Sword, the Shadow School of Sword. Reading backwards is just not my forte. The sword on the waist should not be used without the circular shield. They're talking about China here. For that reason, blah blah blah. The long katana, so the tachi, the weapon utilized by Japanese pirates that attacked our southern and eastern borders. These are just equally samurai. I don't think that they're not samurai. There's pirates. Japanese pirates are a mixture of samurai, buccaneers, privateers, etc. So basically they came in the era between 1522 and 1567. So the golden age of piracy there on the South China Seas, I think, in the Sea of Japan, somewhere around there. They'll be fighting and trying to get to the mainland coast of China to invade there. And it says in 1561, Commander Seki Keiko, which I assume is the Japanese reading of the Chinese name, came across Japanese swordsmanship from a person within his ranks that had studied the method, and this method was studied and adopted, and therefore it is detailed in the following sections. Before this method was taught, they still used the katana in the katana style in China, the same methodology. However, the sword used was shorter and heavier, so it was abolished. What that means is basically in 1561, roughly, the Japanese way of Kenjutsu really entered China. Of course, it's probably there beforehand, but it became and started getting taught to the Chinese troops. And the Chinese troops adopted longer Japanese-style swords, if not Japanese swords, which Eric does go and say they're, you know, they're all imported there. And he's saying that someone is trained in it. Now, later on, and it still comes from the Wubeisi, I think, or the Bubishi, if I've got my head around this, is the Japanese pirate sword from 1614, but I think it is recast in the Bubishi. I think I need to check that with Eric Shah, and he's going to get back to me on some of these questions. So what we have here is, it's actually really exciting, guys. I know it's a little bit technical with all the stuff, but basically in the Sengoku period, that's the Ming Dynasty China, in case you're going to buy a vase, Sengoku period, some Japanese are working in China and they're teaching their methodology to the Chinese. The Chinese are adopting Japanese swords and they're defending themselves against Japanese samurai and pirates with tachi, and using Kenjutsu. So the Chinese are using Kenjutsu, Japanese swords, against the Japanese. Now, this is not new information. This has been known for a long time. It's been known. But what we have is this, which is what I said in my last video. All of this is how to do the different stuff. So the fact that this is a Chinese style guy doesn't make head and tails. This is Japanese swordsmanship. This is Japanese swordsmanship. So I'm going to read to you from the Pirate Manual of 1614. The sword is called a tanto, simple sword, since it has a single blade. China has double blades. This is a single blade. This is used with a two-handed grip normally. I've added the word normally because they do show you don't all the time. These techniques were taken from the Japanese, who excelled at this sword. The blade is forged hard, light and sharp. There are prescribed methods for crafting the sword, blah, blah, blah. No other sword can compare to it, blah, blah, blah. Use the katana while jumping from side to side in a secretive and deceptive fashion, meaning an opponent cannot predict your movement. Even opponent arms with long weapons will fail when you use these katana techniques or sword techniques. Therefore, I learned these techniques. A man named Ryu Unho, a teacher from such a province, was able to study this weapon. He received direct instruction in the Japanese from a Japanese instructor. He taught me all the aspects of this art without omission, and I learned its inner secrets. That is, the secrets of the Japanese katana. At a time, there was another man called Five Swords, and he was in Hakushu, and he was famous both north and south. I paid a friendly visit to him. However, when I saw the sword master Five Swords and compared it to my master Ryu, I found that my master's technique was far better and far superior, so he carried on. However, he taught me these techniques, but he didn't teach me the names, so I have added the names myself. He's added the names himself. When using the Japanese katana, the most important thing is how you move your body. You need to make big, nimble jumps, have quick eyes and fast hands, and be able to invite the enemy to strike. By startling them, you can get the upper hand. Your mind, hands, bravery, and perception will allow the sword technique to be successful. I have drawn the figures armed with both crossbow and sword. I will show the various stances and techniques for defense against an opponent armed with a spear. If you should chance to face other weapons, then by using the same circular movements, you can deflect your enemy's sharp points and achieve victory. And then he starts there. So the images are Chinese, the writing is Chinese, the man is Chinese, but it's all Japanese stuff. And this is all from 1614. And it's his words, how you do it, explained how it is done. And I'm going through it like that, and you will get to see it, guys. And the point is, and Eric's translated it into English. Jack Chen from ChineseLongsword.com has an English translation of this as well. And basically, it's Japanese. It's Japanese swordsmanship. So then you can say to me, well, Anthony, but Katori Shinto Ryu is older. But we don't have a manual from Katori Shinto Ryu that explains all the moves. We might find one. Nobody's looked that deep. It might be dead easy to find one. So this is what's going to happen. So what I'm actually doing is I'm going to be working with Sekihitsu Shinobi from Instagram, and I'll show you a picture here, and he's creating them in a Japanese style for me, okay? So he's going to be creating them in a Japanese style, and we're going to be bringing them back to life. They're already been brought back to life in the Chinese way by a Chinese man on ChineseLongsword.com, and they are actually, they've done it as a Chinese longsword, but they openly say this is Japanese, but of course it's very promoted as Chinese because it's a Chinese website and he's a Chinaman. So basically what we're going to do now is try and bring it back to its late 1500s, early 1600s Japanese way. I hope you enjoyed that. So that's hopefully explained why that's the oldest one. It's because at the minute we've found no others with a long description that beats the date of 1614. So get yourself a copy of Eric's book, get yourself across to ChineseLongsword.com and keep subscribe. And if you can help me, guys, get yourself a copy of the Book of Bushido. It really does help.